Hello. Is there anybody here who wants to hear my podcast all about the day I had? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Your Honor, opposing counsel, if I may be allowed, I would now like to summarize my case. As you all know, the burden is on the prosecution. My client, Roger Moore, has nothing he needs to prove. The sole responsibility for proofs lies with the prosecutor. You must retain and maintain an attitude of impartiality until such evidence, such credible evidence has been introduced as to swing you over into a space mentally where you have decided that beyond a reasonable doubt, Roger Moore is guilty. Absent that assuredness, absent that conviction, you must in the stead find my client not guilty. And a not guilty verdict does not mean that my client is innocent. That is irrelevant. The point is, the jury, you, are the only 12 persons sworn in all the world to hear the evidence in this case and render a verdict. And so a verdict of not guilty does not mean you believe in innocence or lack of innocence. What it means is you believe that the prosecution failed to meet its burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Roger Moore actually, in fact, did commit the crime for which he has been brought here before the court today. Oh, hi. Sorry. I got carried away. Hi, Debbie, Kathy, Scott, Rachel. All right. So it's 6:02. It's February 12th. It's 2021. And my name is Ken Goldberg. And I have a podcast that's often referred to as Ken Goldberg's Law and Disorder. It's also sometimes referred to as my fireside chat. In any case, it airs at 6 o'clock Monday through Saturday. And this is actually it. It's kind of like a variety show. It really is. You don't know who's going to perform until you get here. You can look it up, but what good would it do? So now today, you see I posted 4 songs, for instance. Yes. And I named the show Rock the Sunshine and the Moonlight. And if you look at what I picked, I had 2 versions of Rock Me Baby by 2 stars. Come on. B.B. King and Tina Turner are both stars, 2 different versions of the same song, right? And then I thought, the Walker Brothers, the sun ain't going to shine anymore, right? But when I thought of that song and I'm listening to it, I thought, Jerry and the Pacemakers, Don't Let the Sun Catch You Crying. 2 sun songs. You get it? I knew you'd get it. That's good. All right. Say no more, say no more. Nudge, nudge. All right. So, thank you. Thank you, Ray Dean. Welcome. Welcome to the podcast. And you know what? It's actually sometimes at the end of a hard day. Like, for instance, yesterday, if you paid attention, I cleaned house. Today, I had a friend help me tremendously. They were helping me clean. I was cleaning all day, off and on. And I found by like 4 o'clock, I wanted to get in bed and I don't know, go to sleep, take a nap, whatever. And I hadn't gone out and bicycled. I hadn't gone out and walked. All I did today was clean house. Doesn't seem very arduous, does it? I mean, you know, I have a cordless vacuum. And by the way, I'm going to get a video of me vacuuming with my cordless vacuum, just as a way of kind of inspiring the rest of the world. The once you see me vacuuming cordlessly, you're going to be either jealous and get one, or you're going to just be jealous and not get one. But in any case, you'll be jealous. And I'm going to get a video done of it. I have every intention. So, um, so the other day I started to play congas, but I got really insecure. Like I have no idea if they can hear me play or if I'm blowing out their eardrums. So I do offer to play a little Santana today if you want, as a diversion from me just talking the entire time. So that's one of the possibilities. Debbie. Scott. I thought I was going to see Rock of the Casbah. Yeah, you know what? I don't care for that song. That's by, I don't remember, but you know what? I gave that song a lot of tries. I had to. They played it on the radio like for freaking ever, Scott. And I really just never took to it, you know? But Rock Me Baby, Rock Me All Night Long. I mean, there's so many versions. I think Paul Butterfield, blues band, did it. And Paul Butterfield's from the South Side, where I'm from, Debbie's from, and Kathy's from. Paul Butterfield was a white guy, grew up in Hyde Park, had a beautiful blues band, became pretty significant blues band, and I'm pretty sure they did that. I know they did Chicago, my home, Chicago. Yeah, so here we are. We stand. I love what Yogi Berra said. When you get to a fork in the road, take it. Ah, how delightfully unfulfilling and ambiguous, but at the same time, it fills you with awe that somebody could go there, that somebody could think to even say it. It's like delightful, because I'll never get a chance to interview Yogi Berra and ask him, were you serious? Did you know what you were saying at the time? Could you have known what a mouthful that really was? And he said other things, great things Yogi Berra did. He apparently was, I don't know what you call it, aphorisms or whatever, but he was one of the kings of it in his time. Do they know who Yogi the Bear is? Well, everybody knows who Yogi the Bear is. Oh, boo boo. Let's get the picnic baskets and get rid of the rain dirt. Let's go someplace and eat the picnic baskets. I mean, but Yogi Berra is not the one who said, is the one who said, when you get to a fork in the road, take it. Yogi Berra was a New York Yankees player. Yogi the Bear, even more famous than Yogi Berra, was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon that aired, I believe, on Tuesday nights for most of our life, our young life, along with Huckleberry Hound, right? And then there was Quick Straw McGraw and Babaloo. And there was, what good times to sit down to dinner in 1960, turn on WGN and watch Hanna-Barbera cartoons, except for Thursday when Woody Woodpecker was on, because I was a different provider. All right. So are we not? I said, rock it. Here I am. I'm rocking it, baby. I'm rocking it. I'm here. I'm rocking sunshine. I'm rocking moonlight. I'm rocking whatever comes, man. You know what? Everybody here, every one of you has the ability, more than the ability, you have this, you all have within you this inclination to rock. It's just, it's a pure sensation that is either awoke or needs to be awoken. But there's nobody we know. There's nobody from the age of 50 onward who has not rocked to something that I would be familiar with. And so somewhere within us, any one of us could be the one to get up next and start rocking. Now, I won't be able to see you do it, but you need to feel free. If the spirit moves you, hell yeah, go ahead. Just do it. Do it like it's never been done before. What do they say? Dance like nobody's watching. You know, my memory is amazing. Kathy's probably referring to my recollection of cartoons. So here's why my memory is so amazing. Every night for years, my sisters and brother We sat down for dinner at 6 p.m. and there was a little TV there, blue and white TV. We had no remotes, of course. And yeah, I think Monday was Huckleberry Hound, and there would be subcategories. And then Tuesday was Yogi Bear. Wednesdays, oh man, maybe Wednesday was Woody Woodpecker, and Thursday was Quick Draw McGraw. Quick Straw. Okay, so Fridays, by the way, is Rocky and Bullwinkle. I didn't mention it because on Fridays, given that I'm Jewish, my father made all of us, first off, we were not allowed to watch TV. We had to be at the dinner table as a family. That night, we had to be at a dinner table with my mother and father, unlike the other days of the week. Land of 1,000 dances. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So I told you yesterday, I only learned one small version of one dance across the street from my house. I learned to do something called the bop, that version of it. There were probably hundreds of permutations of the bop that subsequently came into being. I didn't learn to dance things like the hitchhiker or a monkey time or any of those. I stuck with one dance, and I always did it with trepidation because black kids could be cruel to white kids when it came time to dance. Because I ran with some, black street gangs, we went to some parties where they were cruel to like University of Chicago students who were dancing at events, parties that we would show up at, and they would mock these kids quite openly, by the way, because we were gangsters. We were like there to intimidate when we weren't doing something else. It was kind of cruel in some regards, but I wasn't trying to be cruel, but I was trying to be cool, not crude, not mean, cool though. And cool got distorted in the process. Cool is always a distortion until you are mature enough to really ascertain what is truly cool and what isn't. Today, I'm truly cool. I know that, right? When I get together, I have friends that say, well, when I was young, I've never been cool. I say, well, you're cool now, you with me. Well, you hanging with me, you cool. If you listening to my podcast, you cool. You know what I'm saying? I can make that determination just like that. But back when I was a teenager, my sensation of cool, my recognition of cool, my inclinations were more thuggy. I would act thuggy, and to me that was cool because it served a variety of purposes, among which seemingly cool was one of them. But I digress. Those days, I was very measured, very restrained in some ways with how I allowed myself to be seen in public. And yet, if you saw photos, and there's a couple on Facebook, of me at the age of 17, talking about a guy who is self conscious. You see pictures of me on 57th Street, kind of look clownish, long hair, that bandana I wore that had a long tail to it, long hair, small sunglasses, what we used to call pimp tints, leather, usually a midi leather jacket and stuff. I mean, I was a caricature rather than a character. So jump ahead to modern times, because those are olden days, right? I was a teenager in the olden days. If you're not my age and you do happen to tune in, and you're probably not here now, but maybe you're just hanging out on YouTube one day and this comes up, or you're a friend of mine on Facebook. You're one of my young friends and you see it. Okay, those days were the olden days. Now, modern times, while I don't dance, I do know cool. I can represent cool if I wish at any time, and I will invariably be accurate about whether I'm being cool or not, because I've matured. So now I define cool. Okay, I don't wait for the definition to arrive. I don't search in your pockets to see if you have the answer to what's cool. I just know now I'm cool. And I will, and it is rare. It's a rare moment when I have to, I wouldn't say ostracize somebody for not being cool, but sometimes you have to temper somebody who thinks they're being cool. You know, even at this late stage, there are people older than me, younger than me. I'll tell you how you see it manifested. Oh, I'll be in an AA meeting, and somebody thinks that um, they're being funny, but ain't nobody laughing, including me. And I'm like, dude, read the crowd. You know, look around. Ain't nobody giggling but you. You know, maybe it ain't so funny. Maybe you need to pull back a little bit. You know, if you want to go for humor, then one way to evaluate whether you're successful is anybody laughing, right? If nobody's laughing during and if you do it repeatedly, if day in and day out, you show up at an AA meeting and you try to make people laugh, and day after day nobody laughs, then I might have to go for the jugular and just tell you, yeah, you ain't cool, man, and that ain't cool to sit up there and make me listen to your lame jokes, your that can wear me out. That can wear me thin. So, but in the absence of that, most of you, once you're with me, well, we're cool. We are cool. Like last year, not this summer, the summer before, I told you all that I have, and I'll show you. No, I can't show you. Well, I could show you, but I'd have to kill you. No, just kidding. What I was going to say is, I was in Hyde Park, and I went to meet some friends, right? And I can tell you, there was a friend named Bill Stipe who was on the phone the other day. He was really cool when we were young, but he moved away. He lost all his cool, came back to Hyde Park, hung out with me, got his cool badge back. Ariel Brenner, cool. Jimmy Towns, cool. Mary Herford, cool. Steve Sharver, Arroyo Alfano, Kathy Corsi, a.k.a. Kathy Green. Okay? How do I know they're cool? And Kathy's niece, right? So, and Malcolm. Don't let me forget Malcolm. Malcolm Hicks. All right. So I'm telling you, there's a time and a place. And I used to dance. Well, I used to dance when what's that song? I used to dance when they had the rock and roll. I don't know. So please talk about that mess in Fort Worth. I don't know anything about it except that 75 to 100 vehicles, the last count, were involved in a collision. 5 people were dead, many were injured. It was horrible. It was horrible. Here's the thing: people say. They often say, oh, I just don't know how to drive on ice. And the answer from anybody, especially they say it to somebody up north, oh, we don't know how to drive on ice in Texas. Okay, here's the appropriate response, anybody up north. We don't know how to drive on ice either. Nobody knows how to drive on ice. If you want to know how to drive on ice, you might have tires with spikes in it, something like that. But a regular car on ice is, as it's just luck. It's just dumbass luck. So when they say to us, I don't know how to drive on ice, we can say nobody knows how to drive on ice. Don't feel bad. Now, when they say that they don't know how to drive on snow, okay, I do know how to drive on snow. We know how to turn into the skid because we're used to skidding on snow. You can pull yourself out of a snow skid. You don't pull yourself out of an ice skid. You just don't, because you don't have any control. So that's my 2 cents on what happened yesterday. People were not respecting the fact that it was a icy highway. It was cold, and they were on an interstate. And there's just one video that shows a truck, barely high speed, crashing into trucks and cars going over the tops of them. And they say they're investigating, but the state police said, well, they interviewed one truck driver, and he said, I just couldn't stop, i.e. he put on the brakes and nothing happened. That's ice, right? Then they say they're investigating, see what happened. I'm going to offer a shortcut. Somebody was going too fast on ice, and when they put on brakes, it didn't work. Started a collision, and people coming up behind couldn't stop. Bing, 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 bing. You see these kinds of accidents in other parts of the country. But we've not seen that in Dallas, I don't believe, in the past. You've seen in the panhandle of Texas. You've seen even in the panhandle of Oklahoma, Texas. This is not uncommon. A snow blind. People have major Colorado. Yeah, black ice is invisible, so they say. How do you know? But in any case, people think that frequently it's referenced as black ice because it's invisible. You can't navigate it. But I've gone out on a limb, Radine, and said, no ice is navigable, whether you see it or you don't see it. You shouldn't be out if you think there's going to be ice, because it's the one thing a car doesn't have any capacity to combat. New car, old car, unless you've got like essentially a car built like a tank, a Jeep or something, a Humvee, once it loses control, I mean, you're kind of at its mercy. Do you get snow in Dallas? About 4 days a year, we will get some snow, Kathy. It usually doesn't stick. What we do get is slush. We will get a wet, freezing rain a couple of times a year. We will have super slick streets. It's a time for everybody to stay home. Snow, in all the years I've been here, seen it a few times. Usually doesn't last, but the day. I remember once when I first moved here around 96, it lasted a couple of days, and I had bought a house that was down. The house was down off the street. You had to go down this steep driveway, and I couldn't get my ass back up the driveway when I wanted to leave the house. It was too steep and too slick. I think we ended up using cat litter because people around here, they didn't have salt. They didn't use it. They would put down sand, and let me tell you how useful sand is on ice. Not at all. So they used to put sand on the road, and then the first 10 cars would be driving on sand, but as they're driving, they're flicking the sand to the side, and so by the time the 11th car comes along, there's no protection. Now they use things like salt or some combination of salt and brine. Hi, Lisa. Is anybody else out there that hasn't introduced yourself? Jim. Hi, Jim. If you're out there, check in. It's fun to check in. And by checking in, I mean, you go to where it says write a comment on your screen. You can do that on the YouTube broadcast. You can do it here on the Facebook one, and you just type in and say, hey, it's this is Melvin from Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know Melvin in Phoenix, Arizona, by the way. That was an example. Ann Martinez McDougall, thank you. I was beginning to wonder if you were going to show up. Isn't that funny? You kind of get it in your mind that you'll probably see certain people. So speaking of seeing certain people, let me tell you a little story. So I went for my vaccination last Saturday. Tomorrow will be a week. And I get there and I'm checking in, right? I'm filling out paperwork. And this lady came over and she said, I think I'm your neighbor. And I don't recognize her. And I said, oh. And she said, yeah. I don't know if she asked me where I lived or she said, I live on Papa, which is the street behind me. And I said, oh, yeah, I live on Casablanca. And she gave me her address. I said, oh, that's you directly behind me. You're married to your husband, who I have spoken. And she said, yeah, that's us. And she said, just wanted to introduce myself and say hi. And she was volunteering there, right? And she's very pleasant and walked away. And I turned to the lady checking me in. And if I told you this story before, I'll try to make up better facts. I turned to the lady that was checking me in. I don't think they knew each other. There was, maybe 40 people working. And I said, isn't that sweet? She said, yeah. And I said, she doesn't like me. She hasn't liked me for years. We've been neighbors for about 5 years, and she hasn't spoken to me the last 3. She got mad at me about 3 years ago for something I said to her husband, and that's been it. But she was really pleasant. Okay, I'm following that up. I kept thinking what I should do is I should text her husband, because I have his number, and I should say, please thank your wife for greeting me at the inoculation. That was very nice, because I was a stranger in a strange land. You all know how that is. I mean, there were people getting inoculated. There were people inoculating. There were people checking you in. The people directing traffic, whatever it was. I didn't know any of them. Albeit I did know somebody. So I've been meaning to send out a text, and I kept forgetting or putting it off. Anyways, I went out to take out the garbage today, and they were out there getting in their SUV. And I said to her, hey, hi, thank you again. That was so nice of you to greet me when I got there. Thank you. And she was very kind and said, how are you feeling? And I said, feeling fine. Yeah, no problem yet. So, and then I asked her, when are you getting inoculated? And she said that she wasn't sure. They're younger, much younger. They're probably in their late 20s. So who knows? So Ann McDougal checked in, but she was the last one to check in. So maybe everybody's checked in. That's fine. You don't have to check in again. I'm not trying to work you. I'm not trying to work the audience. I'm prepared to do most of the work today. As I suggested, I call that Jingle Bop. I first heard that rhythm by Santana on his first album with the lion on the cover in kind of black, gray, and white. And then I discovered that even before he had made that song, which is called Jingo, 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 Bop, Bop, Do, Bop, Bop, Do, Bop, Bop, Do, Bop, that it had been done by Olantuji, Babatunde Olantuji, a African drummer who did it on an album referred to as Drums of Passion. Not referred to, it's called Drums of Passion. And if you have a chance, he's on YouTube. Some of his stuff is on YouTube, and really magnificent. It wasn't rock. When he does it, it's just all different African drums together. Really nicely done. Babatunde Olantuji, not Michael Olantuji. That's maybe a relative. Babatunde, Babtunde, I believe. Check it out, man, if you like drumming. Abraxas, well, that was a subsequent album, Rachel. That was, wasn't it? Is that the first album? I don't think so, but Santana first album. Is that Abraxas? It just says Santana. I'm looking at the thing. Yeah, it's just called Santana. Okay. Threw me off for a minute. I thought maybe I'd forgotten. So anyways, Jingo and Persuasion, and some of the greatest rock jams using percussion, that is primarily congas, maybe some timbales, is to be found on the first album with the Lion. Santana appeared at Woodstock, and he was not a big name. He was known, but he wasn't a big name. And he took some LSD to kill maybe 4 or 5 hours before his set. But because of the congestion, they were really having difficulty moving in talent and moving talent out. So they were stuck. They didn't have the people that were supposed to be playing weren't there. So ultimately, they recruited Santana to get out there with his band and play. And he admits he was tripping on LSD. He wasn't having a good trip. He was having a bad trip. He said he was seeing snakes and stuff. Anyways, he jammed, right? And if you see the film, okay, Jim, be safe. If you see the film, Woodstock, and you see that set, it was one of the great sets ever, but especially Woodstock. When you see the percussionists, when you see the guys playing timbales and congas and the drum trap set, they call, the full drum set is called a trap set. You're like, wow, how does that happen? And then when you find out they were so, at least Santana was so tripped out, watch him. He says one of the things that he doesn't like to see is the way his face, if you remember his face during his performance, it was often like this, right? I don't know if that was when he was seeing the snakes or that was just when he was grooving. I don't know. I wasn't at Woodstock, but I can tell you that he has admitted that he's slightly embarrassed by the whole contortion thing that was going on with his face. But while that was going on, my man was playing guitar, and the people with him, and they couldn't have been together all that long, were just fabulous drummers. So, like I say, listen to anything from that or look up Babatunde Olantuji, the drums of passion. Listen to that Jingo Bapla. Jingo Bapla is on there, and you'll recognize where I picked up that rhythm from. Boom, 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 boom. Bum, 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 bum. Anyways, I digress. Back to today, back to the moment, back to now. So I tried to watch the impeachment case. I tried to watch the defense. I never got more than 5 minutes into it because the guy would just say anything. I'm listening to him. I didn't think he was particularly persuasive. Yes, he did do something that he was supposed to do, which is strike at what we talked about 2 days ago, and that is the linkage. If you said that all these people were planning to come and storm the Capitol in advance, then his speech at the rally may become inconsequential because they had already independently decided they were going to take the Capitol, whether they were hearing it from him or imagining it. You would have a hard time taking his words before the rally and making that the but-for cause. Now, what they did do, and they did very well, was they created a timeline of events where he promoted violence and promoted anger and promoted hostility while he fueled that sense of I am the victim. I've been deprived for all, not just for him, for his people. So I think that the inferences were so significant. The independent moments, starting with the rallies back in 2015 till the rallies now, I think there was significant evidence. But the defense wisely identified that if you had pre-planning, which, by the way, the prosecution, the Democrats, put on quite demonstrated quite well, and I wasn't sure that was a good thing or not, but they absolutely demonstrated through the internet, through a variety of social media, that there were people planning to attack the Capitol. There were people who thought that was what they were going there to do. They thought that they were being called. But if you listen to the speeches preceding, it's not that clear. It's ambiguous. Ambiguities always go against the prosecution legally. The jury may decide otherwise, but legally, an ambiguity should be construed against the person proffering it. So if I'm proffering that these preliminary conversations and tweets and Facebook posts, whatever they were, if I'm suggesting they are proof of this intention linking the president to it, then I got to do a good job of showing his linkage. And what they said numerous times, if you were listening, is they said a lot of this conversation was going on media sites, which the White House was monitoring. Now, they didn't bring anybody in to testify that I worked for the White House and I was responsible for monitoring, number one. And number two, I told the president to look at this stuff, and he did. That would have been overwhelming. That would have been a conviction, right? He knew despite that. Now, you can infer that he knew, but they never brought in a witness, and I understand why they didn't. They may not have one, and even if they have one, it gets sticky, but they needed somebody to say, not that the White House, generic, was monitoring the social media, that what they should have tried to prove was that it was being monitored by Trump. And in the absence of Trump personally monitoring this, that somebody who spoke to Trump in advance of the rally had told him these things. That was what was missing in the prosecution's case for 2 days. It's just a lot of great inferences. I liked it, and it made me pissed off to see how many times he encouraged violence. It pissed me off to see his cavalier attitude about all this. But I don't know anything about a conversation from McCarthy. So if that was today, I saw nothing of it. If it was in the past, I don't recall it. And so I think that I've already said I don't think he'll be convicted, and in a sense, he may not be able to be convicted. And by that I mean, while I believe he's guilty of sin, and while I believe he's been dragged through the slime and the mud properly, as a defense attorney, and I know that the standard of proof is different, I'm not sure they created the link that I would be looking for between Trump and the rally and the activities at the Capitol. I think there's just enough space in there to drive a defense through. And I think that they brought it up. I didn't watch them. I watched them 5 minutes at a time here and there. Well, if it just came out, Rachel, I haven't seen it. I don't know. I guess could be relevant, right? McCarthy, I don't know. What's McCarthy talking about? New details about Trump-McCarthy shouting match. So Trump refused to call off the rioters. Well, I hope that helps persuade the senators that was. No, Abby Hoffman was not found guilty of inciting a riot, Ray Dean. If I recall correctly, Abby Hoffman and all of them, they were either found not guilty or their convictions were thrown out. So I went to the, what were they called? The 7. Conspiracy 7? Was that? Anyways, I went to one day of that trial. I want to say this. There was a guy named Abby Hoffman, another guy named, you know who they all were. On the bench was another guy named Hoffman, Julius Hoffman. And I want to tell you that I walked in that courtroom, that federal courtroom, downtown Dirksen building, when they were on trial to watch a day. And Julius Hoffman is the closest living thing I'd ever seen to Mr. Magoo. I swear on all that is holy, he looked like Mr. Magoo. He looked like his glasses were so thick, you were worried he'd bump into something. And he oozed evil. He was so hostile. He oozed evil. But he may ultimately have convicted them, but their convictions did not stand. At least that's the way I recall it. So in response to Rachel's question, I looked up, apparently Trump and McCarthy had a conversation about calling off the rioters, and Trump refused. So yes, I haven't read the thing, but I read the headline on CNN. Thank you. Thank you for apprising me of that. So again, inciting is not allowing, okay? Inciting is not condoning. He's charged with inciting. So the proof has to be that he intended for those people at the rally and anybody in the near area to march to the Capitol and do everything up to violence to stop the electoral vote from being accepted. His actions afterwards may be evidence, proof of guilt, again, by inference, but they don't link him to turning that rally into an assault on the Capitol. I'm telling you all, it was a hard road to hoe. I thought they did an extraordinary job. The House Democrats, I thought they did an extraordinary job. And, yeah, I understand, Rachel. So the, when you're talking about conclusions and you're talking about proof, then I don't know if Rachel's not paying me attention when I said it's not really very relevant what he said to McCarthy, because that was once the riot started. So that's not what he's charged with. He's not charged with allowing a riot to continue. He's charged with inciting a riot. So I hope I've argued my case eloquently. I hope I've argued my case so that everybody, Rachel and Ray Dean and everybody who's listening, Liza and Ann and Mark and whoever, I hope you all understand that what I've laid out for you is the legal barriers to a conviction for the charge of inciting, as were found under the Articles of Impeachment. So I've gotten some good positive feedback on days when I have given you some legal analysis of some event like this. I think I get most positive feedback when I do analyze, although it's not necessarily my favorite thing. I don't mind doing it, and I really think the anatomy of a legal case, looking everything at the skeleton to the internal organs to the skin to the final features, is interesting to me as a lawyer. But what I found was that in going to law school and in trying cases, that there's an obstacle to a layperson that is a non-lawyer to understanding, interpreting, and fathoming what is going on, whether it's in a courtroom that you've been in a courtroom maybe watching, or it was on television, or it's in a movie. It can befuddle you. And so I'm hoping that, as I've laid out over the months, what I call the anatomy of a criminal case in particular, I hope that holds you in good stead when you go to the next, movie with Matthew McConaughey and Samuel Jackson and, some woman in some southern town where Samuel's charged with killing somebody, right? I hope that when you see those movies written by somebody, that guy's an ex-lawyer, and his legal movies and his legal books, Grisham, I think, are not very factual. They're not very accurate. The way what you're allowed to do in the courtroom can be very restrictive. You are not. You can approach passion usually only once, and that's during the closing argument, right? And what evidence comes in is fought about for days leading up to a trial. Both sides will do what they can to keep out what they think, which evidence they think is too prejudicial. So we have a statement. It's called what the prosecution is intending to offer, its prejudicial value, its prejudicial effect outweighs its probative value. In other words, whatever it's intended to prove, it creates more prejudice than proof. And we argue to keep that kind of evidence out. And the prosecution will argue similar things to us. And all that's resolved in hearings before the trial. It's time to go. It's time for y'all to dance with the moonlight, the sunlight. You got Rock Me Baby. You got Don't Let the Sun Catch You Crying. Um, and you got something else. And my thing, what I want to say is, before I leave, listen, these are some groups you haven't had a chance to listen to. Jerry and the, I guess Jerry died recently, so maybe you listen to some of the music. I had the 45s. Okay, I probably had the first album, Jerry and the Pacemakers, Barry Crossed the Mersey. So you can come to no harm strolling down your own memory lane with Jerry and the Pacemakers or the Walker Brothers or B.B. King or Tina Turner, right? You dig what I'm saying? I know you do, right? Right? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, nod, nod. Uh-huh. All right. If you wish, bring your hands together before your heart. Bow your head. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes. Let us take a moment to end this podcast with a reflection on goodwill and kindness. Or if you wish, let us end this podcast with a prayer of goodwill and kindness. And it starts like this. May I be happy, healthy, free from harm, free from anger, animosity, anxiety, and fear. May this practice bring me to a place of greater peace and comfort. May my mother and father and all my family members, all my friends, be happy, be healthy, free from harm. May they too find the path that brings them to a place of peace and comfort and even freedom from all suffering. And may those persons I find difficult, those persons I harbor any ill will towards, even if I think it's justified, doesn't matter. Lay down that resentment in this moment, and if only in this moment, so that they may be happy, may they be healthy and free from harm. May they too be living their lives in peace, comfort, and even joy. And to all living beings throughout the universe, humans and non-humans alike, wherever they may be, may they receive this radiance, this collective radiance that we're generating for all living beings to be happy, healthy, free from harm, living lives in safety, comfort, and peace. Satu, Satu, Satu. Well, thank you, Debbie and Rachel and Lisa and Kathy and anybody else that was here. Ann and Mark. I didn't see Chris and Becky, Liza, Lisa, Ray Dean. You guys are cool as hell, I love seeing you here if you stayed. Scott didn't stay. I know Scott didn't stay because Scott, he lives in Tucson. When he stays, he closes with Satu because he's part Thai. So he knows how to close the Thai blessings, the Pali blessings. So, all right. Y'all be careful, be safe. Don't go out if it's icy. Find an excuse not to go out. Okay? Nobody knows how to drive on ice. And even if you did, wouldn't help you because the next idiot doesn't know how. So you could been on that highway yesterday when that truck couldn't stop. And you were driving along, you were doing a really good, you were handling it, man. But you know what? You didn't anticipate that some trucker going too fast couldn't stop, climb all up your car's ass and crush you. So abstain from icy roads. Peace out. Namaste.